Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. I'm RJ.
I'm unique.
And I'm Khalil.
Every day, just like you, we find ourselves trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. As peers in the healthcare profession, we find ourselves discussing and debating many different topics. And after many heated debates, we decided to expand upon these topics and give them to you from our viewpoints as licensed therapists and social workers. If this is your first time here, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and participate in the conversations. So today we are going to talk about double standards between men and women. That's a very serious topic. We as a society have come an extremely long way in being progressive and adjusting as the times have changed. With that being said, as far as we progress as society, there are certain things that are in the way of keeping us from being equal. There are certain roadblocks that have gone unaddressed and have created certain hurdles that just create problems. It goes without saying that these injustices apply to not just one particular group, but to all genders, races, backgrounds, regardless of one's identity. So, as I said, with our topic being on double standards, I think that it's important that we first understand what a double standard is. A double standard is a rule or a principle that is unfairly applied in different ways to different people or groups. In most scenarios, they are essentially the same. But when double standards occur, certain differences are judged under a different light or circumstances, depending on the person that the standard is being applied to. Without even noticing, most of us tend to be influenced by these patterns of behaviors or thoughts. And I can say that, there are a lot of things that I never really considered as double standards until you start sitting down talking to people who are different from you. Rather that be from a different religion, rather that be from a different socioeconomic background, educational level, different career track, different gender, different sexual orientation, then you start to really unpack and see how things are different for them in regards to how they're different from you.
I think that's also appropriate for age differences, right? Like different generations look at things differently. So what may have been acceptable in the 50s is definitely not going to be acceptable in 2023.
For sure.
We come from, I know I was raised by a stay-at-home mom. And so for a majority of my life, my mother worked. She would stay at home, And so she's like, well, you take care of the kids, you cook the dinner, you put it aside. Right. And I'm like, girl, I don't do that. Listen, we all gonna eat this dinner late, okay? I don't have time to cook it earlier. But I think that's just her time frame that she grew up in. And then you have people like one of my best friends, she was just like, her mom kind of had the same notion. Well, you're not gonna cook for that man? She said, that man know how to cook. And you know what he wants to eat. Why do I have to cook it? And so just seeing that demographic shift with just something as simple as preparing a meal for one's family to totally, all the same gender people. My mom's a woman, one of my best friend's mom is a woman, and my best friend and I, we're the women in our marriages. And she was just like, the views are different from that of our mothers and how they did their marriages and the standard of, well, this is what's supposed to happen, as opposed to now you hear of couples where the man does the cooking, or that's their norm, and it's not, no one bats an eyelash about it.
Well, the funniest thing that you say that, because when you meet stay-at-home dads or people who are in charge of the household because of their job situation, or they might only work weekends depending on how their shift is set up, or they work from home, they take care of the kids. They meet the kids, all of us, and these are men doing these things. And I've talked to a few of them, and I think a lot of society is starting to understand that the roles can be reversed depending on who's the breadwinner, the financial provider. And seriously, with me, I look at it. My wife makes more than me. She's in the medical field, but a lot of the time, I'm home with my stepson. Matter of fact, luckily he just started driving. Got himself in trouble recently though.
Oh no.
But usually I used to have to take him everywhere. I told him, I said, we got to fix this because it was stressful to be, because I'm at home more. And it's stressful for me to be like, hey, well, I need to run him to basketball practice, run him back home to get this or get that. And luckily, he's not a young child, but I know people who do that with 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And it is difficult, but people look at them like, oh, well,
they're such a hero.
Yeah, like
they're doing so great. Oh, they're such a great parent.
But I mean, people have been doing this for ages, especially women. And so there is a double standard applied to this. My mom was a single parent. And I remember a lot of times it was like my grandmother had to come live with us because my mom, being in the medical field, she was a nurse, working overnight, sometimes working, and she didn't take many overnight shifts, but working 12 hours. She wasn't home. And by the time she got home, she was exhausted. So my grandmother used to step up. But I remember my sister was a latchkey kid. She actually took care of me for a lot of the time. You know what I mean? She had to watch me. And there's a lot of households that operate like that right now. Their siblings watch the kids.
But I think a lot of that is because people assume you had a big sister, that they assume that was her role, right? To step in and do that. Now, if it were flipped and you were the big brother and she was the little sister, no one would have batted an eyelash if you left her in the house. Oh, well, that's just what boys do. You know, boys ain't gonna stay in the house. Chad, he's young.
She had to come home and take care of me. Get me off the school bus. And we're pretty close in age. She's only 4 years older than me, but when she got older, she had to come in, take care of me. And my sister's not the best cook, might I add. That's why.
What you not gonna do is come against her cooking.
So that's why my grandmother had to come a few times during my life. She didn't want me to starve. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, it's funny because that was her accepted role because she was a female, that she had to cook, clean. I mean, I would help her clean, but not like that. She had to do a lot. And then when she was driving, take me to basketball, football practice, that was a lot on her. I look back at that now because she's a female. People expected her to do that.
And they expect her to know how to cook, to instinctively know how to clean, to kind of step in as mom junior and take care of you without saying she's young too. She's only 4 years older than this boy and she's a baby herself.
Yeah,
the mom is at work. Why? She might need to get a babysitter or have grandmom or another family member to step up and take the role. And that's not to fault your mom at all. I think just that generation, we was all turning keys by ourselves. And the person, you better not get kidnapped. But I think it was just
solo and look, make sure you don't get kidnapped.
Don't burn the house down. Don't get kidnapped.
Well, I don't
now, but you know.
I don't think that it was one of those things where it was just like the expectation. I think is that for women, like that is the role that the woman is supposed to fill. And then when guys do it, it's like seeing like a unicorn do it.
Right.
You
know, it's like, oh my God, a man is stepping up and being the stay-at-home dad, and he's taking care of his kids. Women do it all the time.
But that's what we're saying. You're praising the unicorn and not the person who just does it.
Who does it all the time. And that's what blows my mind about, some of the standards that we have set as normal. Like it's normal for a woman to struggle and to figure things out. And to be the sole provider, but then when the man does it, oh my God, he needs a Purple Heart or a presidential citation for doing something that women do all the time. And to me,
you remember, good job.
I mean, to me, I feel like that the fact that people don't speak on that more is what has made that so normal. That thought process so normal. Because even when you look at wage disparities. You're doing the same job as me as a man, as a woman, Unique. We're doing the same job. We got the same credentials. We got the same everything, but I'm going to get paid more than you.
And I might have to take you out.
Yeah. Or even when you look at things like, going to certain colleges, if you have the same identical degree from, say, an HBCU in comparison to a PWI.
Yep.
The degree from the PWI is going to pay tens of tens of thousands more dollars than the same identical degree from an HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
Like we live in a society where, yes, we have progressed. As I said earlier, we've progressed and we are moving forward. Things aren't as archaic as they used to be, but there's still some work that needs to be done, because in order for us to all feel like we're valued members of society, we all have to have the same everything.
But see, I don't agree with everybody getting the same everything. Because, I mean, my mom used to say that fairness is not everybody getting the same thing. Fairness is everybody getting what they deserve, right?
Okay.
And so when you look at, we hear this thing, I want to be able to do the same job as men. Women should be able to do all of the same jobs as men. Biologically, I'm built a little different. And so certain things, I'm not even talking about strength-wise. Strength-wise, I might be able to do it. But what if I want to carry kids? I may have messed that up.
Right.
That's true.
Right? I can't lift 300 pounds when I'm pregnant. I don't care. That's dangerous. Like, I'm not a doctor, but I would just say a pregnant woman lifting 300 pounds is different from a non-pregnant woman lifting 300 pounds. And a man who's never going to be pregnant lifting 300 pounds. And I'm not talking about trans men. I'm talking about a biologically born cisgendered man.
Yeah.
It's never going to be a time, unless you had an injury, where you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right? But a woman might have something. So somebody said, well, you wanted fairness and you wanted to be one of the boys. So lift this up. That's not fair. Just because now I'm not able to do that, now I shouldn't get paid. Now, if we're talking about something that has nothing to do with my capabilities, like physically, then yeah, I think there should be equal pay.
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be equal respect. I think there should be respect for what the person is capable of whenever they apply to it, not what just because of my gender that makes me capable. Or no, it makes me capable because of my intelligence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I say that because when I was in seminary, I had a guy to tell me, you're just too pretty to be here. We were both sitting in Hebrew class, and so we're both having to learn this. And he's just like, that's the one thing I don't get about you. You're pretty. Why would you come to seminary? I said, what? What does that have to do with anything?
Calling on your life to do something.
I said,
when it comes to spirituality, right?
I don't know that makes a difference. He said, yeah, but you could do anything. And you chose to just come here and be with us. I was like, I don't know that my attractiveness prevents me from being able to do a job. But throughout my time there, that was a recurring theme. Well, you can't wear this because you're going to cause somebody to fall. You can't say that because people are going to feel some type of way. You can't speak out too much because people are going to think of something about you. And so I was just like, but nobody is saying men get to wear what they want. Nobody's policing what the men wear in the seminary. No one's policing what the men say. No one is saying, you're really an attractive man. You didn't think about modeling? Really? A pastor?
Why are you doing this?
You don't think that this is going to lead women astray because you look so good? I can really see all of your muscles when you wear those tight shirts. You don't think that that's going to lead a woman astray with you looking like that?
Right.
But they said it to women because it was expected I was supposed to sit down and shut up. I was supposed to dress in a way that was not appealing to me.
Right.
For the sake of someone else. But I think that comes in throughout society. You see that, right? Where women, we had the same degree. I had more degrees than a lot of those guys. So that was their first master's. I came in there with a master's degree. And so a lot of them are just like, oh, you're really smart. Yeah.
Right.
And I passed my Hebrew comps, might I add, and a lot of them did not.
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of that factors into the whole gender roles thing, where you know, as a man, the expectation is you will do A, B, and C, and then as a woman, the expectation is you will do C, D, and E, and it until we start to knock down some of those gender roles, because again, as we see nowadays, you have the gender roles that, you know, like from a very early age, you're taught that you are supposed to be this. As a woman, you're taught to be the homemaker. You know, you're taught to, you know, wash and do laundry, take care of the home, do all the stuff inside the home, and the man's supposed to be doing everything outside the home.
Right.
And we're seeing that nowadays where things are kind of flip-flopping. Things are kind of flip-flopping where, women are spending more time outside the home. Doesn't mean that you can't spend time inside the home, but you're spending more time outside the home. And then you have some men who are spending more time inside the home than they do outside the home. And we just have to kind of respect that. I feel like where we've gotten to at this point is where we don't want to respect people. Mm-hmm. And because we're not respecting one another, there are certain things that we just don't hold equivocally. So like things like even being promiscuous. We'll sit
watch
here
out.
And we will praise and lord over a guy because he is, like laid down with all of these different women. And I've had people literally argue with me about, being fruitful and multiplying. And I'm like,
a wild oat sower.
Well, I'm like, that's not, so when they quote it to me from the Bible says be fruitful and multiply. No, the Bible is saying be fruitful and multiply from within inside the confines of your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Not a marriage. Not a marriage to the way that they decipher it.
They're taking it as, because I like this girl, I'm laying up with that girl. Because I like this girl over here, I'm gonna lay up with her. And then her cousin, her sister, her homegirl, I'm laying up with them too. Mm-hmm. But then we turn around and it's cool that a guy does it. You're the man. You get a high five, a fist bump, a pat on the back. Mm-hmm. But then when a woman does it, she for the streets. Mm-hmm. And and
she might be ostracized.
And they have a whole pool of names for her. She's a floozy. She lose. She's a hoe. I mean, so we don't get those beautiful names attached.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, when you look at what being intimate is supposed to be, I feel like the way that we use it in today's society in regards to physical intimacy, everybody who's out here just passing themselves around. Again, I feel like regardless if you're a man or a woman, you for the streets. If you out here just doing that stuff. Because that's not what physical intimacy is supposed to be for. But the way that we will villainize one gender versus the other just blows my mind. And I mean, no different than where, like even in workplace, somebody such as yourself, Unique, where you're outspoken, you're considered bossy or combative, or even the B word. Yep. Whereas for me, if I exhibit confidence,
assertive,
I'm assertive
leader.
Yeah. I'm smart and I know things. And like I've had coworkers tell me that, oh my God, you're so smart. I heard you're so super smart. And I'm just looking like it's not that I'm smart as I can read. So
to take it a step further. So not only do I get called, all of these lovely names, but then people start to attack how I got into my position.
Oh yeah.
And my last position, when I was in upper management, I was sleeping with my boss, who was a married gay man, known married gay man. Oh, I slept my way to the top. That's why I moved, because I was moving to keep this secret affair going. I was sleeping with clients. I was sleeping with staff. And that's why the staff, I like this staff member better because they had a sex tape of me. And if I exposed them, they would leak it. I was like, I do a lot in my not a lot of spare time. I don't have a lot of spare time, but I'm doing a whole lot of things that I didn't even know I did.
Well, that just shows you a lot of times people can really make stuff up and magnify things in their mind. And that means you're sick usually. And you probably need to go see a therapist, because if you can sit back and try to make up stories and be borderline delusional about different coworkers because they have something, there's a problem with you.
But see, it wasn't about the men though, because there were men in that position. Nothing about them.
Yeah.
It was about the young female who they were like, well, why did she get it? Because then I first started with the questions, well, how did you get into this role? No, never mind that I've been doing this work since before 2013 when I graduated school, right? Because you do an internship and practicums. I've been doing the work for almost 9-10 years at that point. That didn't matter to any of them.
Nope.
What mattered was that they didn't know me. I was young. And how could this young person come in here, this young lady come in here and try to tell me what to do? And I don't know how she got to this position. What makes her different from me?
So then it turned into those negative things. I mean,
I had to have slept my way to the top.
You had to have, not that you were hardworking, not that you were knowledgeable, not that you were the best fit for the job.
Qualified,
you know, you were qualified. No, you had to have done, negative things in order to get to the top. Yeah. And that blows my mind. Like it blows my mind because it's like I said, as progressive as we are as a society, we can't immediately just go to the mindset of, okay, they got the job, I didn't. Let me be happy for them and let me support them because, for me, I was always taught to respect the spot. I don't got to respect the person, but respect the spot. Because if I was in the spot, I want somebody to be supportive of me, be happy for me as well. And that just kind of just blows my mind. But that's the type of things that we experience. I mean, and even not even to take it a step further, but even for us as people of color, like there are certain things that we have as federal citizens that we got to deal with at the job. I have to always be cognizant of the fact that I am a African American male, and being an African American male, the thought process is the fact that some people view me as dangerous.
Yes.
So, or if I'm standing up for myself, I'm being aggressive. So I have to always be aware of my tone. I've always got to be aware of my body language. I've always got to be aware of, what I'm saying in comparison to how I'm saying it, because, the thought process is, okay, he's being aggressive, and that they're dangerous. And so I've always got to minimize, no matter how mad I am or no matter what the other person said or did to me, I've always got to be in the back of my mind trying to minimize my threat level.
Yep.
So that I don't get viewed as a threat, because I've had that happen before, where myself and a coworker got into it because like we were working in an inpatient facility. And so when a client leaves the facility AMA, the nurse had been notified numerous times, you need to let myself and the other therapists know so we can do our portion of the paperwork. Of course, she's just doing what's convenient for her because she really didn't want to be bothered with the client in the first place. Client decided they wanted to leave AMA. She let them sign the AMA form, which was the only part she had to do, and let them walk out the door. Myself and the other therapists, what they teach you in healthcare, in the healthcare profession, there's a thing called continuity of care. If this person's going to leave me, I need to make sure that they have appointments in hand for them to, if they decide that they want to follow up, they can follow up, not just I'm leaving it to them to figure out how to follow up. So we keep having the same conversations over and over and over again, in email, in person. And so she let the client, who was high risk, and for those who are not in the know, when someone is high risk, they're high risk for going to jail. They're high risk for hospitalizations. They're high risk for an involuntary commitment. They're high risk for dying because not a lot of people do. Yeah, because they either relapse, they don't make the best decisions, or they don't necessarily surround themselves with the best
supports. Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to encourage them to follow up instead of, go backwards. And so she let this person leave, who was high risk. We didn't have time to schedule appointments for the person. So at this point, like for me, I'm not going to keep having the same conversation with somebody over and over and over again. So when I bring this up to her, like, hey, I don't understand why we keep having the same problem, and I keep explaining this to you and why this is important. She then turned it into, I felt scared, because he was, all this. And I'm like, what? And so my thing was, for me, I wasn't born yesterday. So because I knew she was that type of person, and I knew she, because nobody cares about the truth when the lie is way more entertaining. So I had another coworker sitting there when I talked to her.
Yep. You have to.
So when she, tried to turn it into, well, I felt scared and I felt threatened and I was so nervous and I didn't know what he was going to do because, of course, she's a woman and I'm a man and I'm an African American man.
Angry, abusive man.
So that's how she was trying to make it, not realizing one, we're on camera because there's a camera sitting right above us, and then two, there's a third coworker sitting there watching the whole thing. So she tries to turn in this thing. And so, at this point, our manager was trying to write me up. So I was like, well, why don't we ask this? Why don't we go back and run the tapes?
Yeah.
So we went back and ran the tapes, and, sure enough, was like I explained it had happened. There was no loud talking. There was no angry talking. But I learned in that moment at that time, because again, if there were no cameras present, if there was no coworker to witness it, that could have ended very badly for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I learned in that moment that in some situations, as a man, I have to be very aware of that there's a certain, had she spoken to me like that, the expectation would have been, as the man, I should have just walked away and left it alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas
as a black man, you would have been expected to do that. Because if you were a white guy, it'd been different. Your name was Jim, and you had a white complexion. You could have been able to tell her, you're lazy, you're shiftless, you don't do anything, I'm tired of talking to you this way, I'm writing you up, all of the above. Call her everything you wanted to call her, and it would have just been, oh, he's just being,
assertive.
Well, human resources would have got in the mix and probably protected Jim or whoever they
were. Of course.
But it became a thing. And so for me, I had to realize at that point, in that moment, and then I've said this in previous episodes, I always look at what I can learn from a situation. Mm-hmm. And so what I learned from that situation is, hey, as a person of color and as a man, I have to be very cognizant of how other people view me. And by being cognizant of the way that other people view me, that allows me to be able to navigate how I interact with them.
I think you said a very important factor when you said that, noticing that these disparities are there. Too often, mm-hmm. I want to say in the black community, that's something that we kind of struggle with, because we're like, well, I just want to be able to be like everybody else. But you're not.
Exactly.
You're not. The sooner you realize that, and the sooner you govern yourself in a way that says, okay, when I'm in this space, I'm going to police myself in a way to gain my respect, or not even earn it, but to be in a space where, okay, when I show up here, I'm already dispelling what you think about me, because I'm laying it out. I already know you think I'm angry, so let's go ahead and get that out now. Okay, just like when I deal with white women across the board, I'm just gonna put it out there. I already know they look softer, and I've had one. She was always quick to be the victim in the scenario,
right?
And so I would have to, when I'm talking to her, have somebody present.
Yeah.
Put it in writing. Have it in an email, because when it came down to it, I knew what I was doing, and I would lay the cards out. I already know this is how you've handled this situation in the past, and from my experience, this is how people that I've dealt with who look like you have handled this experience. And so until we are able to identify that we're not those people, I'm gonna go off of what I know.
Well, look, in recent, in light of the recent events with Tyree Nichols in Memphis, right? Young black man, our own people, you know what I mean? We go through some of that as well.
Oh yeah, colorism,
right? And some black gentlemen were pulling him over. The first thing they're thinking is he's a thug. He's trying to run. He's trying to do this, that, and the third. And they used excessive force, because obviously being in Memphis, they might have dealt with some of that before. Mm-hmm. That special task force did not look at him, because obviously he wasn't a thug, because he wouldn't have been crying for his mom. You know what I mean? Yeah. That should have alerted you right there that there's something wrong. This little boy was crying for his mother, and
was he a thug? A thug without a weapon? He must have had guns on him. He had a gun on his head, on his ankle. He had guns.
Right, and they were upset because he ran. But at this time, he was fleeing for his life, because he's like, these people are trying to kill me. This ain't no random traffic stop at this point. And his adrenaline was running, and he was like, I got to go. He was fleeing for his life, and because they came at him so rough and aggressive. But that's what they're used to doing to black people.
And it don't matter the color of the cop. I think in our communities, we've always had that, where you've been taught, when you see a cop, don't matter if you even did anything, you run the opposite way. When you see a police, you don't ask no questions. You get to a safe space, and if they ask you anything, I don't know nothing.
And that's where we have to try to break down some of those stereotypes, because certain standards that we have when the officer's pulling you over no matter if you're black or white, that yeah, there's certain things you can't do. But I think for African American males, it's so important that regardless, because of these double standards, all right, if he was a young white man, I don't think they would have used the type of aggressive force they used on him, no matter what color the police officer was. But because there's a stereotype and there's these set standards they have for us, it was a no-win situation for him. Even if he probably got out, and he didn't seem like he was that non-compliant. He looked like, because he got on the ground, everything else was excessive after that. And for black men that are watching the show, put your hands on the steering wheel and just say yes. It's one of those things where it's horrible that we have to say that, but we can't make any moves. There is a double standard for us if we get pulled over. Black women as well. You get pulled over by the police, you know that you need to be saying yes. You need to be putting your hands on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden moves. It's sad, but that's what we have to teach our children. Because it usually ends with some sort of violence. I don't care if it's a black police officer, white police officer, Hispanic, whatever it is. It's probably going to end in some chaos if you talk back and you try to fight.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, because the thing is, like I said, like we've got to the point to where now things are a lot more open and people are at least willing to have conversations about certain patterns of behavior, to where I think that's what's we'll start to see some things change. Like people are now starting to people have been talking about the wage disparity for the last few years. You see it with sports where the WNBA is, talking about why don't we have chartered planes? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Like you see it more where people are starting to speak up about it, because in order for change to occur, enough people have to get tired of the status quo. And we see that now where people are starting to say that, hey, I should be able to come into a workplace, or I should be able to do this and be treated as an equal, seen as an equal, seen as a peer, not treated or seen as a second-class citizen. And I think that in order for change to continue to move forward, because change can also go backwards too, in order for change to continue to press forward and continue to improve, we all have to look at each other and view each other from a standpoint of how would I feel if this was me.
The respect factor, you talked about that.
Like too often we get into this thing where, because it's not personally me, it's not my problem. It's not my problem.
Business.
I want to mind my own business. This ain't got anything to do with me, so I'm not going to speak on it. And in order for evil to triumph, the good man is stand by and do nothing. And for too many of us, we do that where we stand by and I'm not going to say nothing because it ain't got nothing to do with me. Mind your own business. Because I remember there was a young lady that got kidnapped in Birmingham a couple years back. And one of the witnesses said that he saw, the gentleman putting her in the vehicle,
costing her.
And his wife told him mind his own business. Right. So this young lady possibly could, because she ended up losing her life behind that situation. This young lady probably could have still been alive had he not listened to his wife and not minded his own business.
But that is his business. And I like the show. Like, I can't remember the gentleman. I think he's a Latino gentleman. And he has a show that's called like, What Would You Do? And they do like social experiments like this where they'll have incidents on it, and they'll look at what people's what their response will be. And several times I've seen them intervene, whether it was different races of people have intervened, like you're talking about, and was like, and he'll ask, why did you say something? They were like, because that is my business, because I'm a human and I have a child and, I have a loved one and I wouldn't want to see my loved one in this and then they not be helped out or they not be advocated for. But so often, I feel like that takes a level of ownership on the person to say, I want to be the change that I want to see. Right. And I'm willing to be the only person fighting for it. I'm willing to be the odd man out if it could just help one.
Right.
Yeah.
If it just helps that one person, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, like I said, because of who we are as human beings, a lot of us tend to be inherently selfish.
That's
we tend to only be concerned about me and mine. And I mean, the thing about it, though, is just imagine where we would be if that's all we were concerned about.
Right? You see, Roger, because you want to take it Christian, you always got to take it back to church. Lord, Roger, I know you just got out of church, but all right. So because you want to go there, but you got to look at the original fall, right? Eve made her decision. Adam made his decision. And when it was like reckoning time, oh, yo, it's the girl you gave me. Yeah. Why you give me her? Because had you not given me her, big father, I would have never made that decision.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think that it's even past that, because I mean, when you look at the notion of community, the notion of community has just kind of eroded.
That's why, Roger, because of the decision Adam and Eve met. God said He was going to put that strife between the two of them. He said, "That's what you asked for, my guy. When I told you, do not check your rib. Where's your rib at? You trying to blame me? If you had been holding her hand, my guy, she would have been eating no fruit."
But I think what RJ is also speaking on is collectivist society as opposed to individualist society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
American society, we're all about the individual. What makes me feel good? What I can do for me, and that's okay in some aspects of life. Yeah, if you're working to improve yourself and you want to make a change, right, for the better. But when it comes to community, I think we are very selfish, because I've been in communities where people turn a blind eye to a lot of criminal activity.
Yep.
And it's almost the standard in that community. Well, they on the corner hustling. I'm going in and out the store. I see the fiends lining up. I see people drinking. I'm not going to address it because those people will kill me. And that's the standard that's been set in certain communities. So it's like, well, I got to stay in my lane, because if I address it, but if more people were to address it,
band it together,
50 people at one time,
you sure can. I mean, unless you got an automatic rifle, then maybe.
Unless you got an AK, SK, you know what I'm saying? All those other extra Ks. If you want to run around and do that, that's different. But
then you're a sniper, and then all the boys are looking for you because you're a serial killer at that point.
And think about that. I mean, seriously, if the whole community would set a different type of standard, where it's not okay for everybody to be out there doing criminal activity, and we pass a blind eye, like I think I was telling RJ the other day about the lady on the bus who was beaten up. I forgot, was that New Jersey? I forgot where it was. They beat up the lady on the bus, and everybody was sitting there videotaping. We were talking about social media. That's crazy. Why are we just sitting there videotaping these kids
instead of doing something?
Person, I don't care what she said. At this time, y'all jumping her. That's not even, you know what I mean? Like it
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anything besides this person is in danger. Their life is in danger. And you don't get to do that. If she says something, like I tell my kids, say something back. It doesn't give you the right to put your hands on anybody. Now, if they put their hands on you, baby, it's fair game. You better handle business.
Right.
And then I'll handle it later. Okay, I don't care who it is, boy, girl, however they identify. You handle your business, and I'm gonna come.
So we throwing hands tonight.
Hello. But so many people, like y'all are saying, just mind your business. And it's not just in our communities. Like you said, I've heard it in lots of different communities. Oh no, that's not our business. Oh no, we don't deal with them.
We not going
no, but that's where, like I said, in order for evil to triumph, the good man to stand by and do nothing. And for a lot of us, because it doesn't specifically apply to me, I'll stand by and watch it be done to somebody else. And I mean, it transcends race, it transcends socioeconomic background, it transcends religion, sexual orientation, education level. We have to be better about how we treat each other. And, and stand behind one another as human beings, because last time I checked, we're the same goddamn species.
Right.
So, but Roger, you're asking people to value life, and we know that the world we live in, that ain't happening.
Right.
And so the small part that we play is, I always like to think of it this way. I might not be able to change the world, but I do get to impact those that I'm closest to. Right? So I impact the people I see at my kids' school, church, when I'm at the grocery store. I've held many a door for men. Because they're walking behind me, I'm going to hold the door.
Yeah.
Is the standard that a man is supposed to hold the door? Yes, it is. But I've held my fair share of doors. I've, walked my fair share of ladies to their car. Did you need some help with that? But requires people saying, I want to value life.
Right.
And not in the world sense of, I'm going to go feed some far off distant child in a country I'm never going to see.
Never going to see. Mm-hmm. I'll shoot that money over there, but I'm not going to help the person down the street.
But I'm not going to help the elementary kid who the only meal that they get is breakfast and lunch at the public school during school time. So when they're off break, that baby don't eat. You now will make sure that the free lunch program is paid for. Well, you could give money to the free lunch program at any public school. You can. You can, and they have services. Meals on Wheels will take meals out for kids, but they need people who value these altruistic commodities that help to do the greater good in our communities. We look at Roe versus Wade, without getting too political, but some people decided, well, this group of people, they don't get to make decisions about what affects their body. Right. Why? Because that's not their choice. Mm-hmm. Shoot me down, but a man can never decide if I should carry a baby or not. You don't carry a baby.
Well,
I don't want to carry a baby, and that's my choice.
Well, it makes you upset because when we look at it and everybody's saying, well, it has to be for the greater good, the ulterior motive and all that stuff like that, that doesn't seem like it's good for everybody, because I'm a social worker. When you have a lot of children, all right, that means there's a lot of expenses. When you don't have the money, that means it comes out of the taxpayers' dollars. And so, I don't care who you are, because I've dealt with it firsthand, and I know what happens to children who don't have, enough money in the household. All right, and we talked about people who can't feed themselves. All right, start looking at the economic value of not having that many people in one household. Right, we start saying it's not cost effective. And how do I have to do the numbers for people? So when people try to feed me, yes, I don't believe God wants to kill any child. All right. Mm-hmm. Nobody said that, but hey, they were passing children through the fire in the biblical days. The Moabites were doing that. All right. So at this point,
and we also don't want people who are sexually assaulted. We don't want minors making adult decisions about their bodies that are going to affect them for a lifetime, and then impact the next generation. We want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be given the choice, the free choice that God gave them.
And God gives you free will. So that brings me to that point. When we talk about a biblical standard that was set, right? You are allowed to let yourself go to whatever that moral depravity is, and you'll still be forgiven if you turn back from that, right? If you repent. So I am not going to be anybody's judge at this time. So that's what I have a problem with. How am I going to say these people can't do this? And that's their own decision. But everybody can have a gun, though, right? So don't get me on that.
But I think that just goes back to the value system. What do we value? And unfortunately, I feel like in this country, I'm gonna say it. No, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Well, poor people have no say.
Well, no, I wasn't even gonna go there. Women in this country oftentimes are not valued.
Right.
We're not the commodity of interest. It's been that way for centuries. And I'm not talking about race or anything. I don't care if you're Black, Latina, Asian, white. You just, in this country, you're second class. You are second class. Look at voting. Women were the last to vote.
Right.
You can't make a decision in this country. You're not smart enough.
Look, we can keep going on. We better stop before we get ourselves in trouble here.
Right. But we're trying to build something here.
Yeah, we're talking about double standards, and these things apply. This is very applicable. Why can't women have control over what they can do for themselves? This might be something that if the woman makes that decision, it might help her in the future. It might actually help more of her community in the future. There's a lot of good that might come from that. Not saying that anybody needs to make that decision, but if they have to, it might benefit their community.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, trying to look at the world from someone else's viewpoint is helpful in, looking at, is this going to be best for all of us, right? I'm not, even though I'm not a man, Rajamel and I have had conversations about where he's like, but you got to see it from this perspective. And when I looked at it from that perspective, I had to check myself several times. And I'm like, oh yeah, I could see how that could be problematic. I wasn't looking at it from that viewpoint. I was only looking at it from my experiences and my position in life. He said, but you are making decisions that affect someone else. And so trying to see it from their perspective. And we were talking about genders, but trying to see it from the man's perspective can be helpful in going forward. And I have to admit, it has helped me every single time. Just that simple act of, well, how might they see? If I do this, how would they internalize this behavior?
Yeah. So, I mean,
step out. And I'm
okay.
All to finish the close, but many blessings, love, and peace to all those. Okay? Take care.
All right. Later, man. So, I mean, those are things that we have to kind of put ourselves in other people's shoes. That's the short answer in how to fix this overall arcing problem. Yeah. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. When you put yourself in someone else's shoes, you're less likely to do the things that offend other people. Yeah. And you're less likely to allow other people to offend other people. And for me, that was something, it's, much easier said than done. That was something that I had to learn myself as I became an adult. As I stepped into, being an adult and being the man that God has called me to be, I had to realize that everything can't always be about me. Mm-hmm. Everything can't always just be about the people I care about. Sometimes I have to take myself out of the equation, put others ahead of myself. Like my dad always says, Jesus first, others second, yourself last. Mm-hmm. And so putting others ahead of myself, I started to realize that some things, okay, that's not okay. Just because it personally doesn't affect me, doesn't still make it okay. So I'm just as wrong as someone doing something to somebody else, knowing that it's wrong and not saying anything about it. So there have been instances where, like, I'll share a story where I had a coworker where we're every time it comes time to do a project, we end up being together. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, like, why are you always with us all the time? Well, the people that I normally work with, they're not really inviting. They're not really trying to include me. Mm-hmm. They haven't given me access to the systems I need to have access to. Do you want me to say something? No, I don't want you to say anything. Well, why not? Well, because I have to work with them every day and I really don't want to cause any problems or friction. So I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, I'm not trying to be funny. I said, but I've noticed looking around, everybody, most everybody looks like me. This guy over here doesn't look like me. And I noticed the people that he normally works with, they don't look like him, they look like me. And I noticed they treat him a little differently. Mm-hmm. And I said, I wasn't raised like that. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to say anything because, hey, he doesn't want to rock the boat.
Because of
or he'll be ostracized for it.
Yeah.
Because now you done ran and told on me. Mm-hmm. And so, I go to my supervisor, hey, can he just work with us from now on? My supervisor was like, well, you sure he doesn't want to complain? I said, I've spoken to him about it. Asked him, did he want to complain? File a complaint, because, hey, I stand behind people because I've watched it happen. Mm-hmm. Like, because I'm always one of those people, everybody says things, but it's a different story when you sit back and watch.
Yep.
And, because people sometimes make things up. And then also sometimes people can misinterpret things or read too much into things.
They see it from their perspective.
Yeah, they see it from their perspective, and a person's perspective is their reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it may not have been what he thought it was. So I sat back and just watched. And sure enough, they did treat him differently.
Yeah.
And so, we got it signed off on, blessed off on. So now he works with us rather than be with the people that are mistreating him. But for me, I recognized and I saw that, hey, he was being mistreated. Mm-hmm. Now, it'd be a completely different scenario, where for me as a person of color, him being person of Caucasian descent, if he was mistreating somebody that looked like me,
then it's racism.
Now it's racism. And so, now we got time and we got energy for that.
Yeah.
So the same way that I'd have time and energy if somebody that looked like him was mistreating somebody that looked like me, I got to keep that same energy when people that look like me are mistreating somebody that looks like him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so,
but
for me,
It's
Go ahead.
not just about the race. You said this man is hired here to do a job. He's being prevented from doing his job because of personal feelings, which is inappropriate, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the theme of what we're talking about. Going beyond the top layer and looking beneath and saying, what is the purpose for all of this? Am I doing something because of my own mess, or am I not doing something because of my own mess? And if it is, you gotta check you.
Yeah, most
right?
definitely.
And say, all right, I don't have to like you, but I do have to respect you. That's standard. I don't have to like anybody, right? But I do have to respect you, one, because of my own moral code.
Yep.
Right? My ethics. Respect looks like doing what I want somebody, treating someone better than I would want someone to even treat me.
Yep.
Going the extra mile. You don't have to treat me nice in order for me to treat you nice.
Yeah.
That's what I would like. Right? But that's not
what we'll always get.
No, but I'm required by my Christian ethics to be respectful, to be kind, to be gentle, to be loving, to be thoughtful, to be respectful. That's the things that I'm supposed to do. And so in that instance, I think that was a prime example of going beyond. Man, that was just tough. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. You could just work with us every time we have a project and say, no, this level of this behavior is unacceptable and you don't need to be subjected to that environment. Come over here.
Yeah, because it could have easily been me.
Mm-hmm.
Circumstances flip-flop, it could have easily been me.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to get into, and that's where I was saying about, overall community. Because when you look at what community essentially started out as, it's a whole bunch of families living together and we're taking care of each other. Mm-hmm. I'm watching your back, you're watching my back, and we're just making sure we're all safe. Mm-hmm. Now we are communities in and of ourselves where we're so only concerned with us, we're not concerned about the collective. And that is what allows the double standards to flourish. That is what allows double standards to continue. And that's what allows double standards to be normalized patterns of behavior, because we are not concerned about anybody else other than ourselves. Mm-hmm. And by putting down, the selfishness and being selfless instead of selfish, that is what allows us to move forward. Because again, we want to claim that we're progressive, that we're accepting, that we're tolerant. But then we're tolerant when it's convenient. We're accepting when it's convenient. We are progressive when it's convenient. Mm-hmm. And convenience
inclusive when it's convenient.
Yeah, inclusive when it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get past the convenient part. Continue to do those things, but leave the convenient part out of it. Has to be consistently consistent.
Mm-hmm. And that is a part of your moral makeup, where I'm going to do what's the right thing to do, have some integrity, right? I'm going to do the right thing, even if no one is looking. And even if it doesn't benefit me.
Exactly. That's what it has to be.
That's integrity,
what it has to be.
Right? It's the right thing because it's the right thing. And there's not, I say that not to say that there won't be moral dilemmas, because life is not black and white. We know that. Everyone on this podcast,
it's a lot of gray.
We know that it's a lot of gray out there. Okay, but in that gray, that's where having a moral compass is going to come in handy, because you're able to say, "Hey, I made the best decision with the information that I was given." That's something that my mom always taught her. She said her father would tell her. She said, "There are no regrets. Make the best decision with what you're given at that time and stand on it." And so if that means, 10 years from now, I did something that, looking back, now that I have more information, more education, it wasn't the right decision. But during that time, I could honestly say I made the best decision at that time. And I think that's something I want people to say about me. I might not be everybody's cup of tea. I might not be seen as the nicest person. But I do want people to say she was fair, she was honest, she was respectful, she was kind.
And consistent.
It might not rub you the right way. It may hurt your feelings. I can't not hurt your feelings if something just hurts you, right? Sometimes the truth is hurtful. But did I bring it to you in a way that felt loving? Did I bring it to you in the kindest way possible? Was I being respectful towards you? Is this my consistent behavior towards you? right? And I think that makes up the difference when you are looking to build these relationships, to build community.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So we are going to stop the conversation here. This is Try Not to Overthink It, signing out. If you happen to like what you heard, like what you saw, we can be found on YouTube at Try Not to Overthink It. We can also be listened to pretty much everywhere you can find an audio file: Audible, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podvine. Pretty much everywhere you can find an audio file, we are available for you to listen to. If you would, I don't know why you prefer to listen to us instead of watch us, because we are some pretty attractive looking people. We ask that you stop by the YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe, comment, turn your notifications on, because we are continuing to grow, and we appreciate you guys for joining us on this journey. But again, we're signing out. We will catch you in the next episode. I'm RJ.
I'm Unique.
And